I want to talk to you about Space Force, and you probably just laughed. Space Force has been ridiculed ever since President Trump announced its creation in 2018.
I'm hereby directing the Department of Defense and Pentagon to immediately begin the process necessary to establish a Space Force as the sixth branch of the armed forces. That's a big statement.
May have been a big statement, but it was received as a big joke.
But there's no threat in space. Who are we fighting? Satellites? A bunch of frozen monkeys? Elon Musk's convertible?
The late-night comedians had a field day with Space Force. Netflix even created a series to make fun of Space Force as a waste of time and resources.
Our nation's internet runs through our vulnerable space satellites. POTUS wants complete space dominance. To that end, the president is creating a new branch, Space Force, which Mark will run.
What?
However, it is telling that President Biden, who the moment he got in office undid many of the things that Donald Trump put in place, kept Space Force. And even that was ridiculed.
When asked why they're keeping Space Force, a Biden spokesperson said,
"Because it's funny."
We have to stop. Space Force is no joke. Let's start with the fact that it wasn't even Donald Trump's idea, even though he claimed it was. Ever since the Russians launched Sputnik 1, all the way back in 1958, the Pentagon started preparing for the militarization of space. In 1983, President Reagan gave his famous Star Wars speech, where he called for a big investment into a constellation of defensive satellites that could shoot missiles out of the air.
I know this is a formidable technical task, one that may not be accomplished before the end of this century.
And now, we are 21 years past the end of the century, and satellites have become our most important military power. Military satellites now help with targeting information for missiles and our troops. They help keep an eye on our enemies with powerful cameras and GPS tracking. There is a global treaty that is supposed to prevent any country, including the United States, from installing weapons in space. However, we know for a fact that many countries, including the United States, have the capability of taking a satellite out of the sky. The United States, Russia, China, and India have all made a great show out of retiring one of their old satellites by firing a missile at it and destroying it. There are also jamming weapons that can be aimed at satellites and disable GPS, disable the internet, affect military targeting, and power grids. You see, it's not just the military. We're all dependent on space.
Space power is absolutely systemic to our national power. It fuels our American way of life. It fuels our American way of war. It fuels our economy. There's nothing that we do as a nation that isn't enabled by space.
General John Raymond of Space Force sits at the table with the Joint Chiefs of Staff from the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, and the Marines. And just like the Marines, which is under the umbrella of the Navy, Space Force is under the umbrella of the Air Force. It's all just a continuation of the Air Force Space Command, which is now transitioning to and being renamed Space Force. Space Force, quite simply, protects our satellites and keeps an eye on the satellites of other countries. It has nothing to do with a war fought on space, and it was willfully ignorant for the media to promote that idea for political reasons. With a budget of a little over $17 billion and over 16,000 personnel, Space Force is the smallest branch of the military right now, but it is growing exponentially in size and importance. The greatest threat to Space Force right now is a public relations one. Shame on us. Because the men and women who work at Space Force 24/7 to protect us and our way of life deserve better. I'm Larry Menti. We'll talk again soon.